Ladies and gentlemen, manifestation responds to assumption, not effort, because effort implies that something is missing, while assumption implies that something is already established. The subconscious mind does not measure how hard you try. It measures what you accept as true. When you assume, you stop negotiating with reality, and you start instructing it. Reality responds to instruction, not persuasion. Most people are taught that success comes from struggle, from persistence, and constant pushing. While effort can create movement, it cannot create alignment. Alignment comes from assumption. Assumption is the quiet decision that something is so, even before evidence appears. This decision shapes perception, behavior, emotion, and timing all at once. When you assume wealth, you do not ask how it will come. Asking how signals doubt. Doubt slows manifestation because it divides attention between belief and disbelief. Assumption is unified. It does not split energy. It simply rests in certainty. Effort is often driven by fear. Fear of not having enough. Fear of missing out. Fear of being left behind. Fear-based effort creates pressure. Pressure creates resistance. Resistance delays results. This is why people who work the hardest often feel the most blocked. They are pushing against their own inner state. Assumption removes pressure because it removes the need to prove. When you assume something is yours, you do not try to earn it emotionally. You act from it, not toward it. This shift is subtle, but powerful. Action taken from assumption feels lighter, clearer, and more effective. The subconscious mind treats assumption as law. It does not analyze whether the assumption is logical, realistic, or socially acceptable. It simply accepts it and begins organizing reality to match it. This organization happens through behavior, opportunities, timing, and perception. Effort tries to change the outer world directly. Assumption changes the inner state, then changes the outer world indirectly but inevitably. Indirect change is more powerful because it bypasses resistance. Resistance only exists when you try to force outcomes. Many people confuse assumption with pretending. Pretending creates tension because you know you are acting. Assumption feels natural because it becomes familiar. Familiarity is the key. The subconscious accepts what feels familiar, not what feels exciting. This is why repetition matters. Repetition turns assumption into normalcy. When something feels normal, the subconscious stops questioning it. Once questioning stops, manifestation accelerates. Effort focuses on time. Assumption collapses time. When you assume something is already done, time loses authority. Time only matters when you believe you are waiting. Assumption removes the sense of waiting. Effort asks, what more do I need to do? Assumption asks, who am I being? Identity always overrides action. A wealthy identity produces wealthy decisions naturally. A struggling identity produces struggle. No matter how much effort is applied. This is why some people receive opportunities effortlessly, while others chase them endlessly. The difference is not luck, it is assumption. One assumes life is supportive. The other assumes life must be forced. Assumption also shapes emotional response. When you assume success, setbacks feel temporary. When you assume failure, setbacks feel permanent. The emotional response determines whether you persist calmly or react impulsively. Effort-driven manifestation often leads to burnout. Burnout is a sign that action is not aligned with assumption. When assumption is correct, effort feels energizing instead of draining. Assumption does not eliminate action. It refines it. You still act, but your actions are precise. Precision comes from clarity. Clarity comes from knowing, not trying. When you assume abundance, you stop tolerating scarcity. This changes boundaries. Boundaries change outcomes. Outcomes reinforce assumption. The cycle strengthens. The subconscious prefers consistency. When your words, emotions, and identity align under one assumption, results stabilize. When they conflict, results fluctuate. Effort often masks disbelief. People try harder because they do not trust the law to work. Assumption is trust in action, it says. I know this is handled. Assumption also affects patience. When you assume something is done, patience becomes natural. Impatience is a sign of doubt. Doubt disrupts flow. This is why manifestations often appear suddenly, after a long period of seeming inactivity. The assumption finally stabilized, resistance dropped, reality caught up. Effort tries to move reality faster. Assumption allows reality to move correctly. Correct movement is faster than forced movement. Assumption does not need emotional excitement. In fact, emotional neutrality is often more powerful. Neutrality signals confidence. Confidence removes urgency. Urgency tells the subconscious something is wrong. Assumption tells it everything is in order. Order organizes outcomes efficiently. People who live by assumption often appear calm in situations that stress others. Calmness is not ignorance. It is certainty. Certainty attracts cooperation. When you assume wealth, you stop focusing on lack. Focus shifts perception. Perception shifts opportunity recognition. Recognition leads to action. Action leads to results. Effort tries to control outcomes. Assumption controls state. State controls outcome naturally. The law of manifestation is not impressed by struggle. It responds to coherence. Coherence happens when assumption, emotion, and identity align. Trying to manifest is exhausting. Assuming is restful. Restfulness signals readiness. The moment you stop trying to convince reality and start assuming alignment, resistance fades. Reality does not ask how hard you worked. It responds to what you quietly decided is true. What you feel consistently becomes what you experience repeatedly. Because emotion is the medium through which reality takes shape. Thoughts come and go. Words are spoken and forgotten. But feelings linger. They create patterns. The subconscious does not track what you think occasionally. It tracks what you feel habitually. Habitual feeling becomes instruction. Most people believe their feelings are reactions to life. But in truth, life is reacting to their feelings. Emotion is not the result of circumstances. It is the signal that shapes them. When a feeling is repeated often enough, it becomes familiar. Familiarity tells the subconscious, this is normal. Whatever is normal gets recreated. You can think positively and still feel anxious. You can desire success and still feel unworthy. The subconscious ignores the surface thought and follows the deeper emotional state. That emotional state becomes the filter through which reality is perceived and responded to. Consistent feeling creates emotional memory. Emotional memory is powerful because it bypasses logic. A person who has emotionally memorized struggle will recreate struggle even when opportunity appears. Opportunity will feel uncomfortable, suspicious, or overwhelming. The emotional state rejects what does not match it. This is why temporary motivation rarely changes outcomes. Motivation spikes emotion briefly, then drops. What matters is the emotional baseline you return to when nothing special is happening. That baseline is what you manifest. If your baseline feeling is stress, you will experience situations that justify stress. If your baseline feeling is calm expectancy, you will experience cooperation and flow. Reality always seeks emotional consistency. Feelings also influence how you interpret events. The same event can be seen as a setback or a setup, depending on your emotional state. Interpretation shapes response. Response shapes outcome. The cycle begins with feeling. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that faith is a feeling of certainty, not a thought of belief. Certainty is emotional. It feels settled. When something feels settled internally, it settles externally. Many people wait for life to change so they can feel better. Conscious creation reverses this order. You choose the feeling first, and life rearranges to support it. This feels unnatural at first because it contradicts conditioning, but it is how the law operates. Consistent feeling also shapes body language, tone of voice, and timing. These subtle signals influence how others respond to you. People feel your emotional state before they hear your words. Opportunities often come through people, not miracles. Emotion affects how those people engage with you. The subconscious also associates emotion with identity. If you feel small, you identify as small. If you feel supported, you identify as supported. Identity then dictates choices. Choices compound into outcomes. This is why emotional regulation is more powerful than visualization alone. Visualization without feeling is imagination. Visualization with feeling is rehearsal. Rehearsal trains the subconscious. Feelings do not need to be extreme to be effective. Calm, steady emotions are often the most powerful. Emotional neutrality creates space. Space allows new patterns to form. Anxious feelings speed nothing up. They slow perception and distort judgment. Calm feelings expand awareness. Expanded awareness reveals options. Many people believe feeling good requires external success. In reality, feeling good creates success by stabilizing behavior and decision-making. Consistent feeling also affects patience. When you feel secure, you wait without panic. Panic causes premature action. Premature action disrupts progress. This is why manifestation often fails at the last moment. Fear spikes. Old feelings return. The subconscious restores the old pattern. Changing feeling does not mean suppressing emotion. Suppression creates internal conflict. Conflict creates instability. The goal is to gently shift emotional tone over time. You do this by noticing patterns without judgment. Awareness weakens automation. Choice becomes possible. Gratitude, calm expectation, and trust are emotional states that accelerate manifestation because they signal readiness. Readiness invites arrival. You do not need to feel joy constantly. You need to feel safe, supported, and open. These feelings tell the subconscious that expansion is allowed. What you feel in ordinary moments matters more than how you feel during affirmation. Ordinary moments build emotional identity. Reality mirrors emotional consistency, not emotional intensity. Whatever you feel most often becomes what you live most often, and life reflects it faithfully. The subconscious accepts expectation as instruction because expectation carries certainty. And certainty is the signal that removes hesitation from the mind. Desire asks. Hope waits. Expectation assumes. The subconscious does not respond to what you wish would happen. It responds to what you quietly expect to happen next. Expectation is different from positive thinking. Positive thinking tries to convince. Expectation does not need convincing because it already feels settled. It is the difference between saying, "I hope this works," and feeling, "Of course this will work." One creates tension. The other creates alignment. From childhood onward, your subconscious has been trained through expectation. If you expected criticism, you noticed criticism. If you expected struggle, you prepared for struggle. If you expected rejection, you braced for it. These expectations were not conscious decisions. They were emotional conclusions drawn from experience. Once formed, they began instructing reality. Expectation shapes perception first. You see what you expect to see. If you expect opportunity, you notice openings others overlook. If you expect problems, you spot obstacles everywhere. Perception then shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. Outcomes reinforce expectation. The loop completes itself. This is why changing circumstances without changing expectation rarely works. A person can move to a new city, start a new job, or enter a new relationship. But if the same expectations are carried inwardly, the same patterns reappear. The environment changed. The instruction did not. The subconscious mind treats expectation as a prediction that must be fulfilled to maintain internal consistency. Consistency feels safe. Safety is the subconscious's highest priority. Even negative expectations feel safer than uncertainty because they are familiar. Expectation also affects emotional readiness. If you expect disappointment, success feels threatening. If you expect success, disappointment feels temporary. This emotional fraying determines whether you persist or retreat. Many people sabotage progress because their expectation has not caught up with their action. They take steps toward growth while emotionally expecting failure. The subconscious resolves this contradiction by restoring the expected outcome. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the law of expectancy never fails. She did not mean excited anticipation. She meant calm knowing. Calm knowing is powerful because it carries no resistance. Expectation also influences patience. When you expect something to arrive, waiting feels neutral. When you doubt it will arrive, waiting feels painful. Painful waiting leads to interference. Neutral waiting allows alignment to complete. The subconscious cannot tell time the way the conscious mind does. It does not understand deadlines or urgency. It understands states. When you expect something, you live in the state of having it. The subconscious organizes experience to match the state. This is why manifestation often happens suddenly. The expectations stabilized. Once stabilized, reality moved quickly. Expectation also affects language. Casual phrases like "this always works out" or "I'm taken care of" are not affirmations. They are expressions of expectation. Spoken casually, they carry more authority than dramatic declaration. When expectation is present, action becomes intuitive. You do not overthink. You do not hesitate unnecessarily. You move when it feels right. This timing feels lucky to others, but is actually alignment. Expectation removes desperation. Desperation is a sign that expectation is missing. Desperation sends mixed signals, wanting something but not believing it is secure. Mixed signal, slow manifestation. The subconscious prefers clean instructions. Expectation is clean. It contains no contradiction. You do not need to expect perfection. You need to expect resolution. Resolution expectation keeps movement forward. Expectation also affects resilience. When you expect eventual success, setbacks lose emotional weight. Emotional weight is what creates abandonment. Without abandonment, momentum continues. People often ask how to build expectation. Expectation grows through repetition and emotional neutrality. The more something feels ordinary, the more powerful it becomes. This is why imagining success calmly is more effective than imagining it with excitement. Excitement fades, calm certainty remains. The subconscious responds best to what feels normal. Expectation makes the desired outcome feel normal before it arrives. Once something feels normal internally, it becomes inevitable externally. Reality is not waiting for effort. It is waiting for expectation to become instruction. Trying to manifest signals doubt, while knowing activates results. Because trying contains hesitation built into it. When you try, you are admitting uncertainty about the outcome. You are saying, consciously or unconsciously, "I'm not sure this will work." The subconscious hears that uncertainty clearly and treats it as instruction. Knowing, on the other hand, carries finality. It does not ask. It does not negotiate. It does not check. It assumes completion. Trying is effort directed at an outcome you do not yet trust. Knowing is alignment with an outcome you already accept as true. The difference is subtle in language, but enormous in effect. One divides energy, the other concentrates it. Most people live in a state of trying. They try to be confident. They try to believe. They try to manifest. They try to stay positive. All of this effort is fueled by the fear that without constant maintenance, things will fall apart. Fear-driven effort never produces stability, because it reinforces the belief that stability is fragile. The subconscious does not understand effort as commitment. It understands effort as struggle. Struggle signals lack. Lack signals absence. Absence delays manifestation. This is why the harder someone tries emotionally, the slower results often appear. Knowing removes emotional strain. When you know something is handled, your nervous system relaxes. Relaxation changes perception. Perception changes behavior. Behavior changes outcomes. The chain always begins with the internal state. Trying focuses attention on the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Knowing collapses the gap. When the gap collapses internally, it collapses externally over time. This is why people often manifest things they are indifferent about more easily than things they desperately want. Indifference removes trying. Without trying, resistance drops. Without resistance, flow resumes. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that anxiety is faith in the wrong direction. Trying is anxiety disguised as effort. Knowing is faith without noise. Knowing does not require emotional excitement. In fact, excitement often masks insecurity. Calm certainty is far more powerful. Calm certainty feels settled. Settled states instruct the subconscious to stop searching and start organizing. Trying keeps checking for evidence. Checking reinforces doubt. Doubt keeps the system in a state of waiting. Knowing does not check. It assumes arrival is inevitable. The subconscious responds to inevitability. When something feels inevitable, the system reorganizes behavior, timing, and opportunity to support it. Inevitability is not arrogance. It is internal alignment. Trying also fragments attention. You think about what you want, what could go wrong, how long it's taking, and whether you were doing it correctly. Fragmentation weakens instruction. Knowing unifies attention. Unity strengthens instruction. When you know something is yours, you stop explaining it to yourself. Explanation is an attempt to convince. Convincing implies doubt. Knowing requires no explanation. People often confuse knowing with blind belief. Knowing is not belief, it is recognition. Recognition feels familiar. Familiarity is powerful because the subconscious prefers what it recognizes. This is why repetition matters. Repetition turns belief into knowing by removing emotional novelty. Once the emotional charge settles, the assumption stabilizes. Trying creates tension in the body. Tension restricts creativity, intuition, and timing. Knowing relaxes the body. Relaxation improves responsiveness. Responsiveness is key to manifestation. Life does not deliver outcomes in rigid ways. It delivers through opportunities that require recognition. A tense system misses cues. A relaxed system notices them. Trying often leads to overcorrection. You change techniques, affirmations, or methods constantly because you doubt each one. This constant switching reinforces the belief that nothing is reliable. Knowing commits calmly. Commitment does not mean rigidity. It means emotional stability. You stay internally consistent even when externals fluctuate. Knowing also changes how you speak. Your language becomes simple. You stop using qualifiers like maybe, hopefully, or if. You speak with assumption. Assumptive language carries authority. Authority signals readiness. Readiness attracts completion. Trying also creates attachment to outcome timing. Pressure creates impatience. Impatience leads to interference. Interference delays results. Knowing trusts timing without obsessing over it. Trust removes urgency. Urgency is resistance. Many manifestations fail at the last moment because trying resurfaces. The person starts checking, worrying, and doubting just before alignment completes. The system reads the emotional shift and pauses delivery. Knowing sustains alignment through the final stretch. This does not mean you never feel doubt. It means doubt no longer dictates behavior or identity. You observe it without obeying it. Knowing is not loud. It is quiet. Quiet states are powerful because they carry no contradiction. When you know something is yours, you act naturally. You prepare without panic. You wait without stress. You move when prompted. Trying makes everything feel urgent. Knowing makes everything feel ordered. The subconscious does not need effort to work. It needs clarity. Knowing provides clarity. Clarity simplifies choices. Simplified choices reduce friction. Reduced friction accelerates flow. Trying keeps you focused on methods. Knowing keeps you focused on state. State creates method effortlessly. This is why different people use different techniques successfully. The technique is not the power. The knowing behind it is. Once knowing is present, technique becomes irrelevant. Reality responds to state, not ritual. Trying is a sign that you are still negotiating with life. Knowing ends negotiation. When negotiation ends, instruction begins. And instruction is what reality follows. Your self-image is the blueprint that manifestation follows, not your desires. Desire is temporary and emotional. Self-image is constant and instructional. What you repeatedly experience in life is not what you want, but what you quietly accept as normal for yourself. People try to manifest money, love, success, or freedom. While holding an internal identity that contradicts those outcomes, they may say affirmations, visualize outcomes, or repeat techniques. But beneath all of it sits a self-concept that says, people like me struggle. I'm not the lucky one. Money doesn't stay with me. Or good things take a long time. That identity speaks louder than any affirmation. The subconscious does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you believe you are. If your self-image is small, reality will continually reflect limitation, even if you consciously desire abundance. If your self-image is expanded, reality reorganizes to match it, often without conscious effort. This is why some people manifest easily without trying. Their self-image already includes ease, support, and expectation of favorable outcomes. They don't feel surprised when good things happen. They feel validated. Validation is a key signal to the subconscious that something belongs to you. When something feels like it belongs to you, the nervous system relaxes around it. Relaxation allows reception. Tension blocks it. Many people feel tension around wealth, success, or happiness because those things feel unfamiliar or undeserved. That tension quietly repels what they claim to want. Your self-image is formed through repetition, not logic. It comes from what you've experienced, what you've been told, and what you've emotionally rehearsed. This is why simply understanding manifestation intellectually does not change results. Understanding does not override identity. Repetition does. Every time you react emotionally to lack, you reinforce an identity aligned with lack. Every time you react emotionally to delay, you reinforce an identity aligned with waiting. Every time you react emotionally to comparison, you reinforce an identity aligned with inferiority. These reactions are not harmless. They are instructions. Manifestation begins to shift when reactions change, not because you suppress emotion, but because you interrupt the identity behind the reaction. When you stop reacting as someone who never gets and start responding as someone who expects, the blueprint changes. Expectation is not hope. Expectation is familiarity with outcome. Familiarity does not feel dramatic. It feels normal. That's why dramatic emotional visualization often fails. It feels forced and unnatural to the current self-image. To change self-image, you don't need to convince yourself of greatness overnight. You need to repeatedly assume slightly higher versions of normal. Slight upgrades stick. Extreme jumps trigger resistance. Instead of saying, I am incredibly rich, which may feel false, assume money supports me more than it used to. Instead of everything works perfectly, assume things are working out more often than I expect. These assumptions slide under resistance and begin reshaping identity. The subconscious accepts what feels plausible. Plausibility grows through repetition. As plausibility grows, identity expands. As identity expands, manifestation accelerates. Your habits reinforce self-image. The way you speak to yourself, the standards you tolerate, the boundaries you keep, and the care you give your body all communicate identity. If you treat yourself like someone who must endure, life responds with endurance. If you treat yourself like someone who expects support, life reflects support. Self-image also dictates what opportunities you notice. Opportunities are constantly present, but recognition depends on identity. Someone who sees themselves as unlucky will overlook chances. Someone who sees themselves as favored will notice openings and act without hesitation. Action is not forced when identity aligns. It feels natural. This is why inspired action works and desperate action fails. Inspired action comes from identity. Desperate action comes from lack. When your self-image changes, your desires change too. You stop wanting things that conflict with your new identity. You stop chasing validation. You stop proving, you start choosing. Choice is power. People with weak self-image feel like life happens to them. People with strong self-image feel like life responds to them. That perception alone alters outcomes. The world treats you how you treat yourself internally. Not how you wish to be treated, not how you speak affirmations, but how you assume your place in the order of things. If deep down you assume struggle is required, life will require struggle. If you assume ease is allowed, life will allow ease. These assumptions operate silently and constantly. Changing self-image does not mean becoming arrogant or detached from reality. It means upgrading the internal role you assign yourself. Are you the observer? The victim, the hopeful one, or the expectant one? The expectant identity does not beg reality. It cooperates with it. It does not fear delays. It trusts movement. It does not chase signs. It recognizes alignment. Most manifestation techniques fail because they target the surface. Self-image is the root. When the root changes, the surface reorganizes automatically. You do not manifest what you affirm once. You manifest what you consistently identify as. An identity always wins. Your emotional baseline determines what stays in your life, not what appears once. Many people can manifest something briefly, money, attention, opportunity, but cannot sustain it because their emotional home is not calibrated to hold it. The subconscious always returns you to what feels familiar, not what feels impressive. Manifestation is not about peak emotions. It is about default emotions. The state you return to when nothing is happening is the state that governs your long-term reality. If your baseline is worry, tension, or anticipation, life will repeatedly generate situations that justify those emotions. If your baseline is calm expectancy, neutrality, or grounded confidence, life reorganizes to match that frequency. This is why sudden success often collapses for people who are not emotionally prepared for it. Their nervous system reads abundance as threat because it is unfamiliar. Threat activates self-sabotage even if the conscious mind wants the outcome. The subconscious prioritizes emotional safety over material gain. If wealth, visibility, love, or success feel emotionally unsafe, the system will unconsciously push them away to restore equilibrium. This has nothing to do with worthiness and everything to do with familiarity. Your emotional baseline is trained through repetition. What you repeatedly tolerate becomes your normal. What you repeatedly resist becomes dominant. What you repeatedly dramatize becomes permanent. Most people unknowingly rehearse lack emotionally, even while visualizing abundance mentally. They think about money, but feel stress. They think about success, but feel pressure. They think about love, but feel anxiety. The emotion overrides the image every time. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. Images are secondary. Words are tertiary. If your emotional state contradicts your visualization, the subconscious listens to the emotion. This is why affirmations spoken with strain often fail. Strain communicates effort. Effort communicates lack. The most powerful manifestations come from emotionally neutral states. Neutral does not mean passive. It means settled. Settled emotions signal completion. Completion signals permission. When something feels complete internally, the system stops trying to fix it. Fixing implies something is wrong. Wrong implies absence. Absence delays manifestation. People often chase high vibrations thinking they must feel excited, grateful, or euphoric constantly. This creates emotional pressure. Pressure destabilizes the baseline. The subconscious interprets pressure as urgency. Urgency signals that something is missing now. A stable baseline feels boring to the ego, but irresistible to reality. Boredom often precedes breakthrough, because the emotional charge around desire has dissolved. This is why manifestations often arrive when you stop caring emotionally. You didn't stop wanting. You stopped gripping. The grip was the barrier. Your baseline is revealed in small moments: how you feel waiting in line, how you feel checking your bank account, how you feel before opening messages. These micro-emotions add up to a dominant frequency. Changing your baseline does not require suppressing emotion. Suppression creates tension. Tension strengthens what you're trying to escape. Instead, baseline shifts through normalization. You normalize calm. You normalize safety. You normalize receiving without excitement or fear. When money feels normal, it stays. When attention feels normal, it grows. When ease feels normal, it multiplies. Most people associate money with emotional spikes: relief, excitement, anxiety, fear of loss. These spikes destabilize the baseline. The subconscious then recreates cycles to restore familiar emotional movement. Stable wealth is emotionally quiet. Stable love is emotionally calm. Stable success feels grounded, not dramatic. This is why social media creates confusion around manifestation. It glamorizes peaks without showing baselines. People chase moments instead of states. Your emotional baseline also dictates timing. A dysregulated system experiences delays because it cannot sustain focus without interference. A regulated system experiences flow because it remains consistent. Consistency is magnetic. Inconsistency creates friction. When your baseline stabilizes, you stop needing signs. Needing signs is emotional hunger. Hunger repels completion. You also stop comparing. Comparison destabilizes baseline by introducing inferiority or superiority. Both create emotional spikes. Both distract from alignment. The emotionally grounded person is difficult to manipulate by circumstances. This makes them powerful manifestors. They are not swayed easily. They do not react dramatically. They respond selectively. Response is conscious. Reaction is automatic. Reaction repeats the past. Response creates the future. Your baseline determines whether you react or respond. This is why meditation works, not because it manifests directly, but because it trains baseline neutrality. Neutrality restores choice. When you can choose your response, you can choose your future. Your baseline also affects intuition. Intuition is quiet. It cannot compete with emotional noise. When your baseline is calm, intuition becomes clear. Clear intuition leads to precise action. Precise action accelerates manifestation. Most people miss opportunities not because they are absent, but because emotional noise drowns out recognition. A calm baseline sharpens perception. It also changes how others respond to you. Humans subconsciously mirror emotional states. When your baseline is grounded, others trust you more, cooperate more, and open doors more easily. This is not mystical. It is nervous system resonance. Money, opportunities, and relationships move toward emotional safety. They avoid emotional chaos. If your baseline is chaotic, life feels chaotic. If your baseline is steady, life stabilizes. You do not need to fix every emotion. You need to stabilize the average. Manifestation is not about intensity. It is about consistency. And consistency lives in the baseline, not the peak. When your emotional home becomes a place of calm expectation rather than anxious hope, reality no longer resists you. It recognizes you as ready to hold what you are asking for. Your relationship with time determines whether manifestation feels slow or immediate. Time itself is neutral, but your interpretation of time creates either resistance or flow. When you believe something takes a long time, your nervous system settles into waiting. Waiting is a state. States replicate themselves. Most people delay manifestations by mentally placing them in the future. The moment you think this will happen someday, you assign distance to it. Distance creates separation. Separation weakens instruction. The subconscious does not work with calendars. It works with states of being. If you feel like someone who is still waiting, reality keeps you waiting. If you feel like someone for whom things are already moving, reality accelerates. This is why urgency backfires. Urgency is not speed. It is fear of delay. Fear tells the subconscious something is missing now. Missing creates more missing. The fastest manifestations occur when time disappears emotionally. When you are absorbed, present, and certain, time collapses. Collapse of time internally leads to compression of events externally. People often say, "It happened so fast," after a manifestation. What they mean is, I stopped emotionally tracking time. Tracking time reinforces delay. Tracking time looks like checking the clock, counting days, watching views, refreshing bank apps, waiting for messages. Each check sends the signal it's not here yet. The subconscious obeys that signal. Letting go of time does not mean giving up desire. It means releasing surveillance. Surveillance implies mistrust. Mistrust slows everything. Time pressure creates micro-stress in the body. Stress narrows perception. Narrow perception limits options. Limited options delay outcomes. When you release time pressure, perception widens. Opportunities appear. Timing aligns. This is why many manifestations happen when people are busy, distracted, or focused elsewhere. Their attention is no longer gripping the timeline. The grip dissolves. Flow resumes. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that impatience is interference. Interference scrambles instruction. Clear instruction requires emotional stillness. The subconscious treats calm expectation as readiness. Readiness activates movement. Your sense of now is powerful. If you constantly feel like you are between moments between who you are and who you'll become, you remain in transition. Transition is a state. States persist. Instead, assume arrival internally. Arrival does not mean pretending, it means settling emotionally into completion. Completion feels calm, not excited. Excitement often means anticipation. Anticipation lives in the future. Calm certainty lives in the present. When you emotionally live in the present as someone whose desire is handled, the subconscious stops scheduling and starts executing. This is also why detachment works. Detachment removes future fixation. It restores presence. Presence is magnetic. The present moment is where all creation happens. People misunderstand divine timing as waiting for the universe to decide. In truth, divine timing responds to internal readiness. Readiness is emotional alignment, not moral worthiness. You can desire something for years and not receive it because emotionally you are not prepared to hold it without destabilizing. Once emotional readiness locks in, timing accelerates. This is why sudden shifts occur after long plateaus. Nothing changed externally. Internal timing aligned. Your inner dialogue around time matters. Saying it's taking too long strengthens delay. Saying everything is moving perfectly dissolves tension. The words matter because they adjust state. State always precedes speed. Time also slows when you compare your timeline to others. Comparison introduces impatience and inadequacy. Both contract energy. Your path has its own rhythm. When you respect that rhythm, things unfold smoothly. When you resist it, friction appears. Friction is not punishment. It is feedback. Many people sabotage manifestation by setting artificial deadlines. Deadlines create pressure. Pressure destabilizes state. Instead of deadlines, anchor into inevitability. Inevitability removes time anxiety. When something feels inevitable, you stop rushing it. Rushing is mistrust. Mistrust delays delivery. The subconscious responds to inevitability by organizing events naturally. There is no forcing, only sequencing. Sequence matters. Some things must shift internally before externals can align. When you rush sequence, you create resistance. Trusting sequence does not mean passivity. It means responsiveness. You act when prompted, not when panicked. This is the difference between inspired action and frantic action. Frantic action tries to beat time. Inspired action works with timing. When you are aligned, you feel nudges. These nudges are subtle. They require presence to notice. If you are obsessing over when, you miss the now. Missing the now delays the next step. The present moment always contains the next instruction. Anxiety hides it. Time expands or contracts based on your state. Calm contracts time. Stress expands it. This is observable even physically. Time feels slow during stress and fast during flow. Manifestation follows the same principle. Flow is alignment between desire, belief, and emotional readiness. When flow is present, time becomes irrelevant. This is why spiritual teachers emphasize surrender. Surrender is not giving up control of outcome. It is releasing control of timing. When timing is released, outcome approaches. Your job is not to manage time. Your job is to manage state. State determines speed. When you stop asking when, reality starts answering now. And when now becomes your home, manifestation stops feeling delayed and starts feeling natural. Your language patterns are constantly programming outcomes, even when you are not consciously manifesting. Words are not powerful because of sound alone, but because of the assumptions and emotional states they reinforce. Every repeated phrase becomes an instruction that shapes expectation, perception, and behavior. Most people speak from reaction, not intention. They narrate circumstances instead of directing them. When you repeatedly describe what is wrong, what is missing, or what is difficult, you are not just observing reality. You are rehearsing it. Rehearsal leads to familiarity. Familiarity becomes identity. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between casual speech and deliberate affirmation. It absorbs patterns. If your daily language is filled with struggle-based phrases like "it's hard," "I can't afford that," "nothing ever works out," or "this always takes time," those phrases become structural beliefs. Once something becomes structural, it governs outcomes automatically. Manifestation shifts when language shifts from reaction to assumption. Assumptive language does not describe what is happening. It implies what is normal. Saying things always work out for me is not wishful thinking if it becomes a habitual way of speaking. Habitual language sets expectation. Expectation guides attention. Attention shapes experience. Many people affirm once or twice, but spend the rest of the day undoing it through unconscious speech. One positive statement cannot override hundreds of contradictory microstatements. Consistency matters more than intensity. Your tone matters as much as your words. Speaking affirmations with tension, sarcasm, or force communicates resistance. Calm, neutral language carries authority. Authority tells the subconscious this is not a request, but a statement of fact. This is why whispered certainty often works better than shouted positivity. Quiet statements feel settled. Settled states instruct the subconscious that there is nothing to solve. Language also affects how others respond to you. People unconsciously mirror confidence, certainty, and expectation. When your speech implies competence and ease, opportunities open. When your speech implies doubt or apology, doors hesitate. You can observe your manifestation patterns by listening to your default phrases. Do you often say "I hope," "maybe if," or "one day"? These words push outcomes into the future. Future-oriented language maintains distance. Assumptive language removes distance. Words like "always," "naturally," "of course," and "already" collapse time. They signal inevitability. The subconscious responds to inevitability by aligning behavior and perception accordingly. This does not mean lying to yourself or denying reality. It means choosing language that directs reality. Instead of reinforcing limitation, you can acknowledge a situation without cementing it. Saying this is temporary carries a very different instruction than saying this is a problem. Problems create identity. Temporary situations allow movement. Your inner dialogue is just as important as spoken words. Many people carefully choose affirmations but internally narrate doubt, fear, or criticism. The inner voice is often louder than the outer one. If your inner language says, "I'm behind, I messed up," or "I'm not good at this," that becomes the dominant instruction. External affirmations cannot override internal narration unless the narration changes. Manifestation becomes effortless when your internal and external language align. Alignment removes friction. Friction slows outcomes. Language also affects emotional state. Certain words carry emotional charge. Repeating charged words keeps the nervous system activated. Activated systems cannot receive calmly. Calm systems allow flow. This is why reducing dramatic language improves manifestation. Saying this is ruining everything amplifies chaos. Saying this is adjusting restores control. Florence Scovel Shinn emphasized the power of the spoken word, because spoken words crystallize thought into form. What you speak, you solidify. What you repeat, you build. Silence can also be powerful. Not every thought needs expression. Restraint prevents unwanted instructions from being issued. Learning when not to speak is as important as knowing what to say. Complaining is one of the fastest ways to delay manifestation. Complaint reinforces lack, resistance, and injustice. It trains the mind to search for problems. What you search for, you find. Gratitude shifts language towards sufficiency. Sufficiency feels safe. Safety invites expansion. However, gratitude should be genuine, not forced. Forced gratitude creates dissonance. Dissonance confuses the subconscious. Simple appreciation for neutral things is enough to shift tone. Your language around money is especially important. Many people casually speak negativity around money without realizing its impact. Phrases like "money is stressful," "money disappears fast," or "money causes problems" build resistance. Resistance pushes money away. Instead of trying to love money emotionally, speak about it neutrally and respectfully. Neutral respect feels safe. Safety allows presence. Language also affects patience. Saying "I'm tired of waiting" strengthens weighing. Say "everything is aligning" removes tension. The words themselves calm the system. When the system calms, timing improves. You do not need perfect language. You need consistent direction. Occasional negative thoughts will not ruin manifestation, but habitual negative narration will dominate. Awareness is the first shift. Listen to yourself without judgment. Correction works better than criticism. Gently redirect phrases when you notice them. This redirection is not suppression. It is editing. Editors shape stories. You are editing the story your subconscious is reading. Over time, new language becomes natural. When language becomes natural, belief stabilizes. When belief stabilizes, reality reorganizes. Manifestation is not magic. It is conditioning. Your words condition your expectations. Expectations guide your focus. Focus determines experience. Change the language and the structure shifts, and when the structure shifts, outcomes follow without effort. Your ability to receive is more important than your ability to desire. Desire initiates movement, but receptivity determines completion. Many people are excellent at wanting, visualizing, affirming, and hoping, yet very poor at receiving. The imbalance quietly blocks manifestation. Receiving requires openness, and openness requires safety. If your nervous system does not feel safe receiving, it will unconsciously deflect opportunities, delay outcomes, or create complications that justify postponement. This happens even when the conscious mind is fully aligned with the goal. The subconscious is protective by design. It scans for threats, not blessings. If receiving more money, visibility, love, or responsibility feels overwhelming, risky, or destabilizing, the system will interpret it as danger. Danger triggers avoidance, distraction, and self-sabotage. Many people associate receiving with pressure. More money means more responsibility. More success means more expectations. More love means more vulnerability. These associations are often unconscious, formed through past experiences or observed patterns. The subconscious does not forget them. This is why some people feel relief when opportunities fall through. Conscious disappointment masks subconscious safety. The system relaxes because it avoided perceived threat. Manifestation accelerates when receiving feels neutral or safe. Rather than intense or dramatic, intensity creates arousal. Arousal activates defense. Defense blocks flow. You can observe your receptivity by noticing your reactions when something good happens. Do you immediately worry about losing it? Do you downplay it? Do you feel unworthy, exposed, or pressured? These reactions indicate limits in your receiving capacity. Receiving also includes receiving ease. Many people feel comfortable working hard but uncomfortable resting. They equate rest with laziness or danger. This limits abundance because abundance often arrives through ease, not effort. If you only feel worthy when struggling, life will continue to provide struggle. Struggle reinforces identity. Identity reinforces pattern. Receptivity expands when you allow good things to exist without explanation or justification. You do not need to earn every gift emotionally. Some things arrive because alignment allows them. People often say they want money, but resist the feeling of being supported. Support implies dependence. Dependence feels unsafe to those who learned early to rely only on themselves. The subconscious then rejects support in all forms, including financial flow. True receptivity does not remove independence, it balances it. It allows cooperation with life instead of constant self-protection. Another barrier to receiving is control. Control feels like safety, but it restricts flow. When you need to control how something arrives, you limit the pathways through which it can come. Receiving requires surrender of method, not surrender of outcome. Outcome remains chosen. Method is released. When you release method, you allow creativity. Creativity introduces surprise. Surprise often carries abundance. Many people unknowingly block receiving by rejecting small gains. They dismiss compliments, ignore small opportunities, or undervalue minor wins. The subconscious interprets rejection as instruction. If small things are rejected, larger ones are withheld. Receiving is a skill trained through acceptance. When someone offers help, accept it. When a compliment arrives, let it land. When a small benefit appears, acknowledge it. These micro-acceptances expand capacity. Capacity determines volume. You cannot receive what you have trained yourself to reject. This is why gratitude works when it is genuine. Gratitude is acceptance. Acceptance tells the subconscious that receiving is safe. However, forced gratitude backfires. It creates pressure to feel something you do not. Pressure is resistance. Gentle appreciation is enough. Neutral acknowledgement works. Receiving also means allowing timing to be imperfect. Some people block manifestations because they do not arrive exactly how or when expected. Disappointment interrupts reception. Reception is not evaluation, it is allowance. You can evaluate later. First, receive. Receiving does not require belief in worthiness. Worthiness is a moral concept. The subconscious works on familiarity, not morality. You receive what feels allowed. Allowed is quieter than deserving. When something feels allowed, there is no inner debate. Debate slows everything. People who manifest consistently have a relaxed relationship with receiving. They do not analyze every gain. They do not fear every loss. They remain emotionally steady. Emotional steadiness signals capacity. Capacity attracts volume. Receiving also requires presence. If your mind is constantly in the future or the past, you miss what is arriving now. Many opportunities are subtle. They require attention to notice. Attention is a form of receptivity. When attention is scattered by worry, comparison, or urgency, reception narrows. This is why calm awareness improves outcomes. Calm widens perception. Receptivity also influences intuition. Intuition often arrives as gentle prompts. If you are tense, you override them. If you are relaxed, you follow them. Following intuition often leads to manifestation without effort. Effort is not the enemy, but over-effort blocks reception. Over-effort keeps the system in output mode. Receiving requires input mode. You cannot constantly output and expect to receive simultaneously. Balance matters. Some people fear receiving because they fear change. Change threatens identity. Identity wants continuity. When receiving threatens to change who you are, the subconscious resists. To resolve this, identity must expand before reception. This expansion happens through imagination, assumption, and normalization. You gently imagine yourself as someone who receives easily. You normalize that image until it feels ordinary. Once it feels ordinary, resistance dissolves. Receiving also means allowing life to surprise you positively. Many people are trained to expect disappointment. They brace for it. Bracing is resistance. Unbracing is an act of trust. Trust is not blind faith, it is relaxed readiness. Relaxed readiness is the state in which reception thrives. You do not need to chase manifestations, you need to be open enough to catch them, and openness is not something you force, it is something you allow. By feeling safe, present, and willing to let good things stay, your consistency of inner alignment matters more than bursts of belief or motivation. Manifestation does not respond to occasional clarity, it responds to sustained coherence. What you repeatedly return to becomes your dominant signal, regardless of what you briefly practice. Many people cycle between faith and doubt, confidence and fear, certainty and desperation. They may feel aligned for a few minutes or hours, then undo it through worry, overthinking, or emotional reaction. This inconsistency confuses the subconscious. Confusion delays results. The subconscious thrives on repetition and stability. It does not need perfection. It needs predictability. When your internal state is predictable, reality can organize around it. When your state is volatile, reality mirrors that volatility. This is why manifestation often fails, not because belief is weak, but because belief is unstable. One moment you assume success, the next you assume delay. One moment you feel supported, the next you feel alone. The subconscious cannot build on a moving foundation. Consistency does not mean forcing positivity. Forced positivity creates emotional backlash. Consistency means returning to the same assumption even after emotional fluctuations. You allow feelings to pass without changing identity. Identity is what stays when emotions move. People who manifest reliably do not eliminate doubt. They refuse to reorganize their identity around it. Doubt becomes background noise, not instruction. Instruction is issued by what you repeatedly come back to. This is why mental discipline matters more than emotional intensity. Intensity burns out. Discipline stabilizes. Mental discipline is not rigid control. It is gentle redirection. When the mind drifts into lack, you notice and return to assumption. You do not argue, you do not punish yourself. You return. Return is power. Every return strengthens the assumption. Every return teaches the subconscious which state matters most. Over time, the return becomes automatic. The assumption becomes default. Default states shape reality effortlessly. Consistency also applies to how you treat yourself. If you are kind one day and critical the next, your system remains alert. Alert systems cannot relax into reception. Consistent self-respect creates internal safety. Safety allows expansion. Consistency in self-talk matters. Speaking well of yourself occasionally does not override habitual self-criticism. The dominant pattern wins. Consistency in expectation matters. Expecting good outcomes sometimes while bracing for disappointment most of the time produces mixed results. Reality responds to the average, not the exception. Consistency in behavior matters, but behavior follows state. If state is unstable, behavior becomes inconsistent. When state stabilizes, behavior aligns naturally. This is why routines help manifestation, not because routines are magical, but because they stabilize state. Stability improves focus. Focus improves instruction. You do not need complex rituals. Simple daily alignment is enough. A few minutes of calm assumption repeated daily is more powerful than rare emotional highs. Consistency also applies to patience. Impatience interrupts alignment. You may feel aligned for days, then disrupt everything by checking, worrying, or forcing when results don't appear immediately. That interruption sends a new instruction it's not working. The subconscious responds accordingly. The most powerful manifestors allow silence between intention and result. Silence is trust. Silence holds space. Constant mental chatter fills the space where results would form. This does not mean you never think about your desire. It means you stop negotiating with it. You assume it is handled and live accordingly. Living accordingly means you make decisions from the assumption, not the absence. You choose differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently. These micro-adjustments compound over time. Consistency also builds self-trust. When you consistently return to alignment, you prove to yourself that you are reliable. Self-trust reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety increases flow. People who lack consistency often lack self-trust. They do not trust themselves to stay aligned, so they overcompensate with techniques. Over-technique creates dependence. Dependence weakens confidence. Confidence grows through follow-through. Follow-through does not mean forcing results. It means staying aligned even when nothing seems to happen. Nothing happening is often the integration phase. Integration feels boring. Boredom tempts people to abandon alignment. Those who stay win. Reality moves slower than emotion, but faster than you think. It responds after alignment stabilizes, not while it fluctuates. Consistency also neutralizes external influence. When your state is stable, external opinions, delays, or setbacks do not derail you. You observe without absorbing. Absorption is identification. Identification with lack recreates lack. Observation without identification allows movement. Many people sabotage manifestation by oversharing their intentions. External doubt destabilizes internal consistency. Protecting your assumption matters. Silence preserves coherence. Consistency does not require isolation, but it requires boundaries. Boundaries around thought, emotion, and energy. Protect alignment. Alignment is fragile at first. It strengthens through repetition. Once strong, it becomes resilient. At that point, manifestation feels inevitable. Not exciting. Excitement fades. Certainty remains. Certainty is quiet. Quiet states move mountains. The world does not respond to your biggest moments of belief. It responds to your most frequent state. When your most frequent state becomes one of calm expectation, steady trust, and internal agreement, reality has no choice but to reorganize, because consistency is not just practice. It is instruction. Stay with the assumption you have chosen. Not until you see proof, but because it has become who you are. When alignment is consistent, reality no longer resists. It simply follows. Thank you.